all of you to please mute your mics. Yes. And you can put the questions in the chat, and then we will be able to, take the questions post the two presenters. We have two presentations for you. And just a brief overview of the TurboCliC member group. I think it's always good to have. We are a cross-sectoral working group of two of us and SNJ, and the core team you can see on the screen. So welcome again to all of you. We have today for you, as I stated, lessons learned from COVID-19 and cities, from waste management to digital tools. This is also, it's also a special webinar for us because it's the last of the series of the 2021, and we are also then, presenting to you the work that we have done over the period of the study. The digital study was done over a period of 2 years, and the other study is from one of the member projects. Further, as a cross-sectoral working group, we are working on various topics of digitalization, cities, and COVID, localizing international agenda, inclusive cities, urban governance, resilience, low carbon, capacity building methods, to name a few. The webinar series, of course, aims at experience exchange and good practices among our members and the industry colleagues. The work today is a culmination of some of the things that has been done. But COVID-19 per se has been affecting us now for the past 2 years, almost 2 years, starting early last year, and been really doing the rounds. And the cities on the ground, of course, have had to adopt. Waste management is amongst the essential services that still continues and continued during the pandemic, during the crisis. However, there were certain kind of alterations and unexpected fluctuations in the waste management composition and quantity. And it required various, methodological changes. So the first case that we have showcases some experiences from India. The second is a study that was done by TurboCliC and has collected information and case studies on how different ICT digital tools can help cities to become resilient. This is a desktop research, and a lot of material was collected, and the study that will be presented builds upon the working group's work of 19 and 2020. Compilation and analysis of the digital tools for climate resilient and low carbon urban development, and various case studies have also been summarized. Who we have presenting to you today are Liju Matthew, who's who's a technical expert with the Climate Smart Cities project and also with the Cities Combating Plastic Entering Marine Environment project in India. And this is the study from the Climate Smart Cities project, which he will be presenting. It's on impact of COVID-19 on waste management in India. There's a study that was done by an external expert for the TurboCliC working group on COVID-19 and cities, the study that I was talking about on digital solutions. Dr. Francois Wonskalwijk, I'm sorry, I'm not really very good at pronouncing, has unfortunately taken ill today, and Lucia Maya, who was supporting with the study, would be presenting on his behalf. I would also introduce the first speaker to you, Liju Matthew. He's a civil engineer and has completed his post-graduation in urban and regional planning. He has 8 years of experience, of which 5 are with GIZ, and he has been primarily working in waste management and the sanitation sector, and is currently an expert in the projects that I stated, providing technical support in waste management, including construction, demolition waste, stormwater, at national level, and also managing national and international contracts. Liju, over to you, please.
Yeah, thanks, Vaishali. Thanks for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from India. I'm Liju Matthew, and as Vaishali just mentioned, I'll be presenting a study. I hope I'm audible. Yeah, thank you. So this is a study based on a study that we did through a group of consultants and also with an internal study that we did, and it shows an impact what COVID-19 had on, especially on the waste scenario or waste management system in the country. So I hope this has been the similar situation in most of the countries, but yeah, so this is especially focusing on the Indian scenario. Waste management in COVID-19. So as an introduction, as you know, COVID-19 has like it did impacted India and also globally everywhere. All the countries have been impacted equally. There were lockdowns everywhere, and most of the services they were stopped and but the waste and many of the essential services were continued, and waste was one of the sector which was continuing as an essential services. But due to the pandemic, the way the form was or the waste was generated had totally changed, as it was before pandemic and now after pandemic. The amount of the type of waste that generated was totally different. Because before pandemic, the biomedical waste, what you see, were usually generated at hospitals and medical centers and all that. But now what happened is it's also been generated at households, and because of pandemic, all these PPE kits and masks and everything, those waste started generating at households, and it started coming in the general waste stream. Then it's also then there's one more statistics that the Central Pollution Control Board had submitted to the National Green Tribunal, that India itself generated around 101 ton per day of biomedical waste alone during the COVID times. So which includes general. So it shows the quantum of waste that has been generated during the COVID. Yeah, Lucy, next slide. Yeah, please, next slide. Yeah, this is how the scenario was. Even the waste collectors were using masks and doing their activity. So now I will go on to the impact, what the impact the COVID-19 had on the regular waste management system. As I mentioned before, there was rise in biomedical waste and their inadequate collection and disposal. So overall, the waste management system was not well equipped for handling of large biomedical waste. So all the facilities, the existing facility that in the country had, it was running at a very low capacity. But now, because of the pandemic, there were like around country had around 200 biomedical facilities, and all of them were running at around 70 to 75% of the capacity, which is like very difficult for the cities to manage itself. And most of the waste were lying piled up around there in the facilities, because they're not knowing how to manage that, because this suddenly a quantum of waste had just came in. And then expansion in biomedical waste generating sources. So now, as I had mentioned before, now the sources of waste generation are also increased. Earlier, this biomedical waste was specifically from hospitals or this clinics or labs and registered authorized agency. But now households also started generating biomedical waste. So from the hospitals and all that, there are some registered agencies who are collecting this waste. They are well trained to collect these waste. But what was happening, the issue was when the waste stream started being generated from the households, there was no proper collection, because the people who are collecting the waste were not well trained to collect such kind of waste, biomedical waste, and they were like equally it was impacting their thing, because they were not having proper safety equipments and all that, and they were not trained to collect such kind of waste. And also there was a lot of issue, because many of the workers, they also left the city because of the pandemic. They were locked down. There was no job, because at earlier times when the pandemic had started, even waste collection has impacted. and many of the people, they had no other job because waste collection sometimes they are also informal workers. They're not directly linked to any worker or any like a job, or they don't have a regular income. So because of that pandemic, everything went closed. They had to like go back to their hometown, which had actually impacted the whole collection system too, and people had to go down to their city. So that was one second impact. Yeah. Then the other one is lack of safety equipments. What I had mentioned before. So where there is regular or there is a formal collection, like the hospitals and all that, they are well aware of the PPE kits and all that. But now with the quantum of waste that generated from the households and all that, the people are not equipped with all these kits. They don't know actually because they were never used to such kind of waste being generated before. And so they were people also, they would just throw their mask and everything. It was just going because nobody was aware what to do with it. And so that was one thing. And then the fourth point, which had a major impact on the like also at policy that the nationally the country is doing is the rise in plastic waste, or to be specific, the single use plastic. Because as there are a lot of efforts that the country or India is doing to reduce plastic, and they had also banned the single use plastic like paste or blaming. But now with the pandemic coming in, the use of plastic drastically increased because now people were like using single-use plastics, and they were like because to avoid reuse, even the hotels and all that, even the home deliveries that they were, so people were now preferring having single-use plastic or like plastic materials because even the kits, gloves, and everything that was prepared, they were all plastic materials. So the usage of plastic, so that has drastically increased, and it had impacted nationally the various activities that the country was doing. So there was also behavioral change. Slowly, people was trying to phase out plastic, and there was a behavioral change. But suddenly, because of this pandemic, again now it's like square one. Now people again started using plastic. So that has been an impact. Yeah, Lucy, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. And the another main impact that the this COVID-19 pandemic had, that the informal sector had a major blow or impact on it. As I had just mentioned, like the waste pickers, they play a very crucial role in the waste management, recycling sector, and they are actually informal workers, and they contribute to like 60-70% of the recycling of plastic waste in the country. So most of the waste that's being recycled goes through that informal sector, and they are not registered anywhere. They are not regular employees. So when this lockdown happened, these informal workers, though waste management was an essential service, these informal work sector workers, where they were not under the essential services category. So what happened? They were under the impact of lockdown, and they were not able to, like, there was no workspace for them. So everything was locked down. So they were like forced to, especially the mega cities like Delhi, Mumbai, and even they had like major impact because all these people, most of the people or informal sectors, people workers in that sector are migratory workers. So they all had to leave from there because they had no income, they had to pay rent. So that was a major situation, and you can see the waste like just piled on, especially in these metro cities, because the quantum of waste is like 1,300 2,000 metric tons of waste that is being generated a day. So it has a very major impact on, especially on this mega cities, but other cities also had the same impact. And many of the recycling facilities, they've had a major impact because they also, these recycling facilities also, it was not under essential services. So all this material just stacked up there, and they had also a lot of financial problem because nothing was functional. So these were few impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. Uh, yeah, Lucy, next slide, please. So based upon these issues, we tried to identify some priority areas or interventions where which could like help in reviving or also supporting the especially the waste workers who are working in this sector to prevent themselves from getting infected from this pandemic or sorry COVID-19. So one will also divided into priorities, like what would be the first priority and second and third. So the first priority was to consider or to make this waste that is being generated at the households to also, or the biomedical waste as a different stream of waste. So presently, like what we have is wet waste, dry waste, and then domestic hazard waste. Then a biomedical category of waste, it's usually not under the regular municipal waste system. So it's been handled by a separate category. But after the pandemic, So it should also be considered as a general, as a next one more stream of the municipal solid waste. Also, CPCB, which is the Central Pollution Control Board, it advises to segregate the biomedical waste at source where COVID-19 patients are staying. So they have this guideline to segregate this biomedical waste from the household that been generated, especially the masks, kits, and the everything that's especially the households where the COVID patients are there. So they have to separate, and there was a system when these households they had a separate collection system also. So that many of the cities were practicing. Um, yeah, Lucy, next slide. Yeah, thank you. But the only thing is like it was not really easy to develop it as a separate stream. So there were like few activities that the city had to do. One is like collaboration on mass scale, because collaboration mass scale, like there are a lot of agencies, for example, GIZ or the UN. They are working in this level. There are a lot of activities that they're doing. So now, since the contaminant waste also become part of the general waste stream, it will now with the pandemic, as you know, it's already 2 years, and now there's a new variant that has come in. So it will still continue. What we can see, this scenario will continue, and this contaminated waste will be part of the general waste stream. And it is important for people to be aware of what this stream is, and they should also segregate this as a separate stream. So there should be collaboration with other agencies who are working, like UN, UNEP is there, GIZ is there. So the cities also should collaborate at mass scale, and there should be capacity building activities, which I mentioned in the next point. The sanitary workers, they should be made aware of like what and how to collect this kind of waste, when especially because also the issue was like waste, the symptoms to come in when the person actually knows like they have COVID. It takes like 1 week to understand. By that time, many of the people would have contracted to that. So there should be capacity building for sanitary workers, like when they go and collect waste from even general public, they should how to manage. They should use proper equipments and kits and all that, and there should be taught hygienic practice that should be taken up in the recycling plants or processing facilities. Then the drivers and handlers who are the transporting the waste to the central processing and disposal sites, they should also be trained, and they should also informed about the waste and handling because they are transporting all this waste to um different locations and the dump sites. So and they are also carrying this contaminated waste. So they should also be trained, and creating a safety and health environment for contaminated waste handlers. So this is what I just mentioned. Uh, People should be made aware, and there should be like now, though a lot of the care is being taken care of these days. So there should be a proper workspace that is provided to these workers, especially at the recycling or MRF centers. There should be like the employers or employees should be there should be a routine checkup that should happen for the employers, and awareness generation and for waste handlers and bulk generators like hospitals and all that, and even at households. So there should be the two activities of development of additional guidelines or disposal waste generation, and development of media websites and public announcements should be made. So that this is basically how like people should be made aware like what is the issue and how this waste is segregated. Then this secure interest of informal sector, as I had mentioned, informal sector was one of the main sector or which had got impacted because of this. So informal sector should be given a means. So ensure that they have provided the basic means of livelihood. It was like suddenly there was a lockdown, and it was nobody was like they were not taken care of. So they should be like their subsidy should be given. You can lose the recycling market should be able to revive. Now it's slowly coming up, but there should be a pressure from the government. So the local government should encourage support and give financial assistance to the contractors, especially the recyclers who are now the lot of recycling shops they had to close down because non-availability of labor and because of not availability of market. So there should be support from the local government, and then the provision of PP kits, like people who are working in the sector, the workers and all that. So there should be an initiative from the government that they should be giving provision of kits, and all the contractors should be given. Sorry. Yeah, and then yeah. So another is the priority would be encouraging startups. So startups. They play a very major role. Now there should be many cities of new project starters came up, but because of pandemic, they had a major impact. But there should be promotion. They are people who can come forward and bring in more ideas and innovative ideas. So these startups should be more encouraged. And after consumption, the government should plan for procuring products which should are made up for recycling. So the whole recycling scenario should be developed, or it should be encouraged, and that's where the startups play a very major role because they bring in ideas, and the government should promote. Like now, many cities are doing, or many states are doing, they're using recycling products are being encouraged. But as an overall, this sector should be also, since they had a major impact because of the pandemic, the government should try to revive them up, and this recycling and everything should be promoted. Um, yeah, so that was the third priority. Next slide, please. Yes, I think these two are the major. I think I'm on time. Sorry, I had to just rush in because of some this restriction time. But yeah, if there's any query or something, please.
Thank you so much, Leju. No, I think it was just perfect. So we come back to you with the questions post the second presentation. So we move on to the presentation on COVID-19 and cities information and digital solutions to build back better. Lucy, may I request you to make the presentation?
Yes, Vaishali, thanks. Yeah, again, apologies for not being able to have Francois here, but ironically, he is in South Africa with a very heavy COVID case now in bed, so he is really not able to make it. But yeah, I'm trying to cover for him and to talk about the study we started. I think it was in September last year, and yeah, to highlight the learnings and what came out of it. Just very briefly a background, as we heard already also from the example from a waste sector. COVID is not only a health crisis, it's an unprecedented emergency across the globe. We are still struggling with it. As we started last year, we were still learning, but yeah, we are not in the end of the learning curve yet. Of course, the urban areas and their citizens are under pressure to respond, to react effectively, not only to the health crisis, but also to all the other consequences at the social and economic level. So, and this was the background when we said, okay, we need to start trying to understand how are the challenges, what are the challenges, but also how to think of the issue as an opportunity to rethink certain processes and paradigms and to engage in a sustainable transformation. Of course, it's not only about the immediate response. This is something, of course, very important, and the waste management example showed how relevant it is to really say, okay, where is the most urgent action needed? But in short and medium and long term, we also need to have in mind what are the consequences and how to deal with that. So all the recovery kind of thinking. And okay, of course, international cooperation in the area of urban development needs to be more creative and think of the learnings from the pandemic, from the recovery, how that can be from the response side, how can that be used on the recovery and resilience kind of medium long-term thinking as well? As we are calling it, also build better before. I learned it's the right term to use because some things were wrong in the first place, as we are seeing also from the waste example. What did we do? So the main objective was to try to promote learning and knowledge sharing on the digital tools, kind of solutions that were out there to support cities, not only in response, but also towards recovery and resilience as well. And we set the objective to look at existing digital solutions and how they were relevant to cities, so digital solutions for cities. And this was based already on the work that was done on this digital tools for climate resilience and low carbon urban development. So really building on a certain structure and a certain taxonomy that we had developed on how to approach these tools. And this is what it's showing here, and on the right side on the fields of action. So what could be tools that were related to mobility and transportation, building and housing, social infrastructures, urban ecology, water and sanitation, waste and circular economies, economic development, energy, and strategic urban planning. And in the end, we learned that many of the tools, they were even not fitting in this structure, but I'll come to that in a bit. So what we have developed so far, or actually what there is available, and that's then also closing this exercise, is a database of digital solutions, which I want to show you a bit how it works. We worked also with a survey, and I'll try to had some examples or the results out of it, and brought you some good practices also to make it more tangible and to inspire. Yeah, the database, as I mentioned, was already developed with the focus of like resilient and low carbon solutions for cities, and that was published already in that study that I showed. And what we did was to then try to look at the new solutions coming out of the pandemic, the new kind of apps or different formats for digital applications or ICT solutions, and in which city they were they were being used, and what are the target audience. So was it something developed for the city government, for citizens, and yeah, what is the impact also on the SDG 11 kind of targets, and if it was a response and recovery, or also looking at resilience kind of outcome for the tool. Now I have to change, and I hope that it works, to show you around just quickly how it's built. So it's an Excel-based tool, actually just a database where yeah, it's like very small now for you to read, but the idea is actually that you see that there are many solutions out there. They are named according the structure according to these urban development action areas or fields of action that I listed. But yeah, in the end, we had to categorize many of them in others. They were not fitting into that logic, but more a lot of on information and data sharing. There is the name of the tool, the city, a short description of it, what type of solution it is. So it's a data solution or a database or a web application or a mobile application. And here one can filter it and just look on certain kind of tools or the type of tools that you need. The target audience is also there, and also if it's focusing here on the response or if it's going even beyond. So it's a quite of amount of tools that are out there. Many cities developing different kind of response tools, and it's there to inspire you and maybe to see, okay, where is the area, the field of action that I have a challenge, and I want to look for inspiration for certain kind of solutions that are already available. This is already saved in our MS Teams channel, but it's yeah, we are thinking of how to make it more publicly available so that other people can also make use of the information. This is the database. So for the survey, beyond the database, what we try to find out through a survey was what are the concrete challenges that are out there at the project level and also at the city level. And we have started running it also really over a year ago, but it was just very hard and difficult to get feedback, even after we simplified it and tried to reach out globally. And I think this is also actually just a consequence of the pandemic in itself. People are overburdened with many daily tasks and just don't have time to take surveys. But in the end, we got some responses. and try to summarize it in a format that it is actually just confirming what we already suspected. The main results mentioned actually that the most difficult part for projects and for cities in the end was, on the one hand, to deliver services. Of course, we saw from the waste management example, disruption of services and on the context of the projects, of course, of meetings. And this is something, we remember quite well now. And the main issue that was highlighted was so that it was very difficult to build or to maintain trust due to the not being able to meet physically, and that there was a very steep learning curve on really how to make use of the digital solutions for still trying to maintain the work on the ground and trying to deliver something with virtual meetings. So a lot of learnings on that. And of course, we also then saw the challenges of not having digital infrastructure, not having people trained to use the different kinds of digital tools for meetings. And I think there is quite a consensus here, and many similar challenges in different cities and different projects. What we tried to summarize here, or to bring also to inspire a bit more, was some good practices that we came across when we were researching the solutions under this digital lens. And the first example is from Bogota, where they really tried to link planning tools data and events happening on the ground. And the city hall health department used an artificial intelligence tool to identify hotspots in the city. So really trying to look at the district level and identify the transmission hotspots on a daily basis with a transmissibility index. And the result, of course, is that you were able to make it a much more evidence-based decision on how to deal with that in that district, and avoid that on that district only people is going out and locking them down there, but also to avoid the moving of people across different districts. In Belfast, there was a very nice initiative, web-based, on a website, linking problems and digital solutions with trying to understand the needs of the people and trying to match the needs of the people and the offers from different kinds of providers, such as universities, the third sector, but also the government and the volunteers. So it's just a website where you go, and then if you want to offer, you can sign up and offer something that you are able to provide, and someone who needs support can also then sign in to ask for support, and there is this matchmaking. Interesting is to see that in Germany, this is an example from a city in Lower Saxony, Basinghausen, that they looked at the topic of leaving no one behind, looking at the elderly that don't have access to internet and don't know how to use these things, where they developed an application that is linked to a telephone service. So people who needs help, they call a number, and they saw that they were able to communicate that widely to the elderly, and they get connected to an application, and the application then try to find someone to help them, like with shopping or getting to the doctor or something like that. So something really more practical for this kind of target group, and looking at how well they are dealing with digital solutions, or how digital natives they are. And and then in the end, the conclusion was that actually many of the COVID-related applications, they have already disappeared, or they're just being used more on this matchmaking kind of offer, but still there is need to reflect on what really worked well and what not, because without proper technical and governance foundations, they are not going to be further used. So at some point, it's just about the response, and it's not really something more related to recovery or to resilience. And in the end, it's about connecting people. When people solve crises, and technology should be seen as an enabler and not as the solution per se. So what we consider, or what we say and recommend, is always to consider the principles that we have talked also already in the previous publication. So the principles for digital development need to be taken into account when developing also solutions for response. And of course, the principles of the Agenda 2030, they should be the guiding framework for this kind of development. And this is well known and can be also then further checked from the publication we have already published. One final thing, and I just have to check for the time. I think it's still important to say that I think in overall terms, there were many kinds of applications coming from startups and trying to connect to the needs from the people in the end. But the digital government kind of approach and needs that are out there, that's still a big challenge. And there were quite good kind of summary coming out of a work done in Latin America, in the Caribbean, saying that it's important to think of data management and risk communication at the local level, and that has been a constant process of learning and adaptation throughout the pandemic. Digital government is in this sense essential for public administration and also for disaster management, and needs to be strengthened. And we realize that even in Germany, we are not good at that at all. So there is a need to increase the use of ICTs and in government procedures and processes. Trying to coordinate different databases across ministries and levels of governments and departments in the governments. It's really important to invest in the digitalization of society, from schools to public offices, integrate the society also into the feedback loop for communicating through digital tools, because also leave no one behind is one important thing, as we saw from the example from the elderly or those who don't have access to any kind of digital devices. In Latin America, they have established home office schemes for government employees, so that they could work from home, still offer the services, and be still there responding and acting during the pandemic. Not always easy. ICT can be used to centralize information also about the spread of COVID. So all this issue about really how it has been used, ICT, so really to collect the information, to make it visible, and also linking to what is happening in the hospitals and clinics. Of course, communicating risk with applications, also to continue online classes. This was something became very clear that it's important to the work part of, but also the school, how to use the digital solutions for that as well. And in the end, it's about also the public procedures that are accessible through online platforms, and then how to help those who are not able to access this. So it's important to invest in the digital, it's invest in digitalization in general for public services. But it's also a challenge, also missing infrastructures, resources are not there. And it's, of course, important to involve the community also to understand what they need, but also to make it accessible to them. And this is still, I think, a big kind of challenge and opportunity also for development cooperation. And I know that there are many things happening on the ground already on this sense. Some new resources that came out, just to share, because in the process of doing the research, also every time something new came out. But these are the most recent ones I would like to recommend, and everything can then be shared also in our Teams channel. Unfortunately, I'm not sure also in the website, we can put it there. But yeah, this is for your information, so for you for now. And yeah, again, I had to prepare this just now in the morning because Francois wasn't able to shut up. I hope that I was able to explain it in a sense that, yeah, it's interesting for you, and happy to take questions. Also back to you, Vaishali.
Thank you so much, Lucy. I think I saw a lot of changes in the presentation, and I was thinking, yes, probably these are the things that Francois would have said, and then we have put them in the slide, which is fantastic. So I don't see any questions in the chat. So I would request for some questions. However, it could also be a sharing of, some work that you have done, which we did not really cover in this. So we tried to, cover as many, things from the COVID and digitalization tools, as well as however many we could lay our hands on, let's say. But I'm sure there must be many more each of the, colleagues in the webinar today would have done for COVID. And it would be really good if you could share that. Those practices, it would help us build the corpus even more. Or if you wanted to elaborate any one of those that has already been covered here is also so really fantastic. So look forward to any volunteers. It would be really good. Okay, till we get somebody as a volunteer. Maybe Lucy, if you could tell us, or Liju, this could be either of your, you could answer. How do you think these two things could be replicated? One, the study, or to take this forward, or Liju, how do you think your work from India could be replicated by any other country or region? Or so maybe Lucy first to you, and then to Liju.
Okay, thanks, Vaishali. Well, actually, what I would like to do now is to make this database actually a bit more accessible, and that is being used, because in the end it is about not reinventing the wheel. I mean, there are many ideas of tools that are there, but yeah, they are now collected in one database, and I would really, for me, it would be something useful, and I know that then the study is helpful to see this being used just as an inspiration, because pandemic still going on, and projects are working on different contexts and on different topics as well. And the ideal case would be that whatever challenge you have, you were dealing with partners, and then you're saying, okay, where can we get inspiration from? And you go in the database and look at it as a yeah, just starting point to collect information and to get inspired. What is actually happening is that still many things are being published and collected, and I think it's not it's a work in progress still, right? So it's always, we're always learning, and we still need to, for me, we still need to learn what is that you need in your project. So this was the idea also with the survey, to try to understand these needs at the project level, but also with your partner cities. And this is still like a bit of open questions. We assume many things are similar from these needs, but if there are needs that are more concrete from your side as well, that you want to put on the table for us to think further of what could be needed, also what we could be doing jointly, that would be also a nice point for discussion. But yeah, back to you, Vaishali, closing from this question.
Thank you so much, Lucy. And I think it's a struggle that we still have. Yeah, one about the replicability, but the other about the COVID thing. Every time we think that it's gone, and suddenly it's back. And I think all the projects are really struggling still. The last year probably was still manageable, at least in India, because we had done our plannings. But this year we really struggled because our plannings were not done, and then we had a window open. But maybe it's different for different countries. Liju, would you want to tell us how this, intervention could then be replicated, maybe to other countries or to other regions, or or any success factors that you would see that, you know, really we could replicate? Any elements? Liju, you are still there? I can't hear Liju. I can see him, but somehow I can't hear him.
Vaishali, maybe just to mention that
Yes.
there is a question also from Anandita.
Oh, there is. Oh, good.
Hello.
Then, yes, Liju.
Yeah, am I audible? Hello.
Yes,
Yes.
now. Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, there's some issue with the mic, I think. Yeah, actually, I would say definitely because this pandemic or COVID-19 is not just like it's based out in India or it's not. So it's a global issue now, and most of the countries are facing the same issue. So I would say this study or these recommendations that we had can definitely be replicated in other countries too, because the main issue that we face is the waste being generated even at household level. So the waste, which earlier was not an issue because it was never known household level that we generated. That's the case now. That's happening, and so that at policy level, what we had mentioned, so it could be a different separate stream could be generated as how the municipal waste should itself have a separate stream where the biomedical waste is also part of it. So that can be replicated, which can be in also or for other regions too, which is very important, especially as you also mentioned, Shali, that this is now a kind of like is not stopping. So earlier we thought like it will go in 6 months, it will finish in 1 year. Now it's already 2 years, and now the review coming in, it's going to be like we don't know now. Still for maybe like another few years. Now, so that considering the waste stream, especially when the waste collectors and they're exposed to all this situation. So there should be this thing that it could be considered as a separate stream, and also I would say capacity building plays a very major role.
We
Liju, I
lost
think
him.
your voice is getting cut and the connection is very bad, but maybe I could
So
summarize. Yeah. So what I understood, Liju, you were saying that biomedical waste from the domestic side at least is here to stay, and so is COVID, at least for the next, several months. So we should think of this as a regular stream rather than, as
very
a
important, and
piecemeal.
also it can be and there are,
Yeah.
that would be my point on this.
Okay. Thank you so much. Anandita, I think you were asking about the efficacy of the digital solutions and the availability. So Lucy, maybe you could answer to
Yeah,
that.
it's quite quickly. I answered in the chat already. So in the survey, some responses from the local cases that were then collected were saying that many of the apps that they were seeing being used were not then there to stay, so they were not being used further. But we didn't check through the database, so I don't know. Perhaps some of them are still there, and that's already perhaps also something nice to look at. Some are still there, and I think can still be further used, but perhaps some just got obsolete in case some responses were not needed then in that sense anymore. That was the answer. And I put the link in the chat of the database. It is a link to our channel so far. I'm not sure if everyone has access. If you don't have, then just let me know. But we will be uploading this also in the, as I would say, in the website, so that in the TurboCliC website it's then made available.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes, Lucy, you have something
And
more?
and Vaishali, just if we don't have any further questions, I thought we could use the last 5 minutes to do a very quick exercise of collecting some further topics for next year, because this is always a little bit the struggle of offering something that is relevant and interesting for you. And I had prepared a flinger for this so that you, at least you that are here, and then you are able to set the agenda a bit of what you would like to hear next year, and perhaps also even to present yourself, because it's always then the the demand and then the offer side, right? So if it is okay, Vaishali, I don't know if there are not any further questions, we could do the short flinger exercise for this.
Yeah, I don't see any more questions. I also don't see any raised hands for a burning solution that anybody wanted to share. So maybe we can close this, the recording and the webinar. And I would really like to thank all of you for joining. And the webinar would be available on the website. And then we move on to the flinger question that you have, Lucy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vaishali. No, actually, there is the link in the chat, and you can go there and